The forest is empty, even of song, even of silence. A crow's threnody stabs at the quiet, the soft creaking long of a hanging corpse, its coarse melody winging through brambles. The yellow-touched clearing slants sun around the dust and theft of stillness. The blackbird settles, head held aloft, peering sharp through a sideways stare, divining illness. Stepmother silence, protecting her line, would smother all sound. But the wanton crow begs to differ, cries dissent, dressed to dine in formal black, descends upon the row. Haughty, the lone black bird commands the glade. The sudden slash of rising wing cuts high to fall, a slick-feathered guillotine blade severing air. It turns the other eye. Careful in his steps, suspicious of harm, the hunter dismounts, displaces the air of forest glade, feels the earth, finds it warm, sees no trail of singers passing, no snare. He is canny. The heart of the clearing holds the last of a cadaver, the crow's repast. There is danger present. Hearing nothing, seeing less, undoubted, he knows. A solitary feather falls, slow drops onto spear grass of green and darkened red. The molten black plumage peels away, stops, reveals an arm of twisting white instead. A rain of feathers down to clot, to pool amongst the razor grass. And out that lake of oil-coloured flight, her blood to cool, a damsel steps, that from the breast would take the heart or soul of any man. The hunter starts, an arrow's judded strike hitting true within the mark. The vision throws a gaunter shadow on his face, a more bitten hue. A solitary feather floats, soft hops, locust-like against the sloped missing breeze, breaks its flight against his thigh, slices, stops, caught beneath his hand, caught in return. Sees blood from the thumb tip. Like a fletcher's blade, a second black arrow cuts the air, straight as arrow's flight. He seeks to evade, is caught. Sees his life flood rolling in spate. A hurricane of feathers wheels, stripping clothes from his limbs, taking skin from the muscle, breath from the lungs, tissue from the bone, ripping thought, wit, memory from the polished skull. The forest now is empty. Even song, even silence stands absent from the place. But the whistle finds a way through the long thigh bone, through the grinning, cavitied face. Hiya. Good afternoon even. Hello, welcome to Poetry Show number 26. Beyond the Fields We Know. That one was called The Crow Woman. thrown us into the deep end. How you doing? I hope you're well. I can't always tell, I rarely can tell who's watching, if anyone's watching, so please feel free to drop a little message if you want to. Just let me know you're there. So I'm reading some poems again of mine, and later on I'm going to include a special guest reading from theirs. So let's see how we do. Poems today touching on folklore and fairy, and a little bit of mythology thrown in too. There's a common feature in many folk tales of an otherworldly being caught by a mortal. The Selkies is one example, any number of swan maidens, or a leprechaun even, the leprechaun or one of the fae, somehow trapped, caught and held hostage in lieu of some benefit or promise that mortal person wants to extract from them. And this poem starts from that point. It's called The Bargain. He has the feel still within his hand, like a burn scar, of a flare of light around swelling hips and kicking legs, tiny breasts in his palm, and the half-remembered flicker of wings like the clash of eyelashes. And when she'd stilled, opened her eyes as full as they might, moon size, and said, "Let me go. I will bring you riches, let me go." And his fist screamed, "No." But his mind thought. And with the bargain sealed and she released, and the qualm in his heart, she was never his to free or hold. He sits within the rustle of dried leaves, cries, "Fairy, where is my gold?" Curious thing about these stories, I think. We're so used to them, we've grown up with them so much. We almost take them for granted. I think, oh yes, a fairy story, a fairy tale. But I do wonder, as I write these, as I read these, and as I read them by other people, what is that other thing we're writing about? What is that mysterious thing? We call them the fae, we call them the kindly ones, we call them all sorts of names. But there's something there, some feeling, some emotion, some apprehension of something beyond what we know that maybe we're seeking to relate to. A few months ago, I was walking in the woods, in the forests, and I was the only one there, the only one around forever. And it was silent, I wasn't saying anything myself. But I did have a sense of there being a presence, something other. Not me, not seen, not a person, not an animal. Perhaps it was part of my own psyche. Or perhaps it was something outside and independent. I wrote down this for her. Silence, but I can feel them now, playing with my breath, running fingers through it like it were hair, rather stumped by the noise of it. Every inhalation brings them closer in. Every exhale has them clinging to the trees, or else my beard, grimacing at the meat. Others like to jump beneath my footsteps, helmeted by leaves. Feigning dizziness at every twig snap, my heavy boots rifle out. And they're wondering at the words I'm writing as I walk through their woods. Perhaps he'll sing them. Perhaps he'll sing. And I did sing for them later that day. And it was a song about crows, or possibly ravens, I don't recall. But it helped because at one moment I was lost, so I sang, and then the next moment I wasn't lost anymore. Another common tale, folk tale, is that of the wise woman, the knowing woman, the cunning woman of the village, who acts as midwife and so much more to all those who can't afford the doctors. A tale of that wise woman being called in the night to go and attend an uncanny birth across the line in that other world, maybe. And this is called the midwife. They've given the human midwife some ointment for the eyes of the babe she's just delivered. So she's smoothing out his cries, and she's smeared a drop on her own eyelids, and seen in some surprise that the birthing room's in a mouldy hole beneath the hill of sighs. They'd come to her in the smallest hours and banged upon the door, a coachman and a flighty maid, to urgently implore that she come within their carriage bold, across the boggy moor, to the cavernous halls of a shadowy manse she'd never seen before. The master who greeted them on the path was wild, with eyes aglare, and a beading of froth upon his lip, a mouth hung with despair, and he's pulling her into the shadowy manse and up the dizzying stair to a drenched bed and the dreadful screams of a young girl rolling there. And she's sending them all for water, and she's sending them for a knife to ease the woman and cut the cord and save the baby's life. A tendering hand upon the brow to calm her in her strife. The delicate gentleman storming about, a grieving for his wife. And she sent them all into the yard and brought the mother to peace. She's coaxed the baby out of the womb and laid it on a fleece. The cord is tied in double knots and cut. At last release from the strains of birth for ma and boy in quiet and surcease. Except this wild young master, with his face and hair aglow, thrusts a glistening ointment in her hands. Anoint him with it now! A dab upon each of the baby's eyes, but wiping of her brow, smears a drop or two on her own eyelids. And this is how she knows that the birthing room's a mouldy hole, the drenched bed's a mere, the mother is strung around with rags, the maid's a toothy sneer upon two legs, the coachman looming high is half a man, half bear, and the lion's smile in the master's mouth is biting at the air. And the mother, new upon the bed, she holds her with a stare. Do not reveal the things you see, but smile if you dare. Make calm escape in quiet haste. Allow no look of fear to betray you see what you can see within the darkness here. With quick and measured step she walks, stifling her cries with her fist, and with the other wiping fiercely at her eyes, stepping over gleaming bones to reach at last the skies. And she stood now at the cavern door upon the hill of sighs. And there's no thought of anything supernatural about that in the end. That moment when something falls away and you suddenly realise that the world is quite other to how you've imagined it up to now. This is a fairly recent one, and also fairly topical. I've called it Trylla. Trylla. A Scandinavian version of troll, or to become a troll. Much shorter, goes like this. Trylla. Of course you are alone, and the only bright light is streaming in your face, so everything is shadowed. And oh, the many voices, see your hand go, hairy, nasty knuckles, see the clawed finger lash out at the light, like your life depended on it, like it'll turn you to stone. Do your chores, little troll, be good. There'll be porridge for you outside the door. Now, it's become a habit during these, since I can't get anybody to come and read with me as a guest, and it's nice to hear other people's, to go through my bookshelves and find a book or some work published by a friend and to read those. It's often a surprise to them. I don't often get a chance to ask them, but none of them seem to mind so far. The friend I want to read from tonight, I've only met her there once, to be honest, but she very much impressed me with her performing and her writing, is a woman called Jennifer A. McGowan. Let's see if I'm reading that up. And her book, With Paper for Feet, published by Arachne, who also publish McGowan, The Knotsman. And of many, many of hers, especially in this collection, touch again on folklore, upon superstitions, upon magics, as well as mythologies, and there's poems on Shakespearean characters, historical characters, biblical characters. So I feel a certain kinship with Jennifer for choosing a famous story and then writing our own view upon it. I mentioned earlier about the sense of holding one of the fae folk to hostage. A common thing, something quite frequently written about now, is the stories of the seal women, the Selkies. And Jennifer's version of that tale is, I think, quite wonderful. And it's called The Witch Box. Hide the skin of a seal woman. She'll cry, of course, but she'll marry you. Teach her the rhythms of your day. Breakfast, commuting, nightly pleasures. Teach her to worship the sun rather than weep at the moon's pull. Your children will be strong. Go into a trade where there's water. Mind you keep some things to yourself. Shake 3 grains of salt from the witch box each night into each corner of the house. Make sure, last thing last, the skin is locked up tighter than a shotgun. Mind now. If she finds it, if she slips into her unforgotten self, you'll find yourself ebbing. You'll shatter the witch box, drink only salt wine. I wonder if one thought of that might be the way that we try to hold on to a fixed picture of somebody else. I know you, that's how you are. Never allow them to change or to be everything that they've yet to become. One thought on it, maybe. The second one from Jennifer takes the story of Red Riding Hood. Again, something with which we're deeply familiar. This one is written from the point of view of the cloak, specifically the hood. Read, spread, tread, fed, shred, dead, step by step, that's how it went. I covered her, muffled her perceptions. a meal for one on the way to Granny's. The prettiest flower blooms once a lifetime. She left the path, I exposed a shoulder, a feast for hungry eyes. A base, needy demand, she gives way, steps in, caught on the threshold, I begin to unravel. Then cast off like prudence, molted like fur, long arms rip and tear. Rags, I soak up the stains. The Hood. And my last from Jennifer's book, With Paper for Feet, reflects upon the story of Briar Rose, a version of the Sleeping Beauty story, where the castle and everybody sleeping is surrounded by this huge hedge of thorns. Briar Roses. On Christmas Day, the skeletons of the boys who failed hang on the briars like ornaments. They rattle and almost hiss as they retreat before the chosen one, who might not be special, save for his crown and timing. He kisses her. Eyelids flicker, briars melt. She smiles, no longer perfect or immortal. The marriage proceeds, the bride blushes and begins to decay. Bones decorate the lawns like jewels. Briar Roses. Those three by Jennifer A. McGowan from her book With Paper for Feet from Arachne. And I'll put the details of that into the comments afterwards. Going in and out of fairy. Perhaps fairy could stand at times for those heightened moments we have. Moments of ecstasy, moments of dream, moments of delirium. And things are so intense that when you come back, you almost long for them again. This is a poem of mine called The Shining Line. Something was left in fairy when I came back over the line. My hair, they say, is still golden, and my boots are soft and fine. My dancing is ever as light as the sun. My stillness retains its shine. But something was left in fairy when they brought me back over the line. I doffed my hat to Jill today. She promised she still was mine. Her mother drove me into the yard for a blessing upon the kine. Her father gave his forgiveness over a glass of mulberry wine. But something was left in the mist when they fetched me back over the line. The priest, he gives a flinch of fear and the flick of a warding sign. The children play out a game of me, with giggles and wonderment in their eyne. The haughty mistress in the hall has summoned me there to dine, to ask me what was in fairyland and what has been left behind. And are there golden apples grown with grapes of silver on the vine? Do the handsomest lords of fairy dance, and do they number 9? Does one of them step away at last? Does one of those princes pine for a mistress all of raven hair, who was snatched back over the line? Then her breast is thrown against my own, her hands in my hair entwine, her lips are scrabbling at my mouth for a taste of a breath divine. The tears upon her cheek do fall and mingle a while with mine. But we part unhappy and lost, for whatever has never strayed across the line. The doctor was called for the mistress, amazed at her sudden and sharp decline. I took myself to visit with Jill, found her feeding her goats and swine. A light surrounding her, bright and sure, ran ribbons around my spine. Told me this, perhaps, is where I belong, upon this side of the shining line. Should I take that treasure that never was took, nor lost across the line? I wonder if we all have moments such as that, feelings such as that. I must do. Intense, traumatic even. With so few people to share it with. Just as Jennifer takes known stories, makes poems of them, it's something I love to do as well, I like to do. Although sometimes when I'm writing it, I don't realise that's what I'm doing. But afterwards, at least, that it's clear. Ah, yes, that's... And this one works on the story of Medusa, killed by Perseus, so that he can take her head, which turns people to stone, to counter the Kraken, Medusa. Made ugly. Should I thank you, Perseus? You're taking the snakes in your head for my own. Raped by Poseidon. Who was it called it a punishment to be named guardian by she given this stare? What right have you to show me myself when you will not look at me yourself? When you will not take the stone of yourself, staring at my breast as you sever my head? Medusa. There's 4 more I'd like to read, yeah, if it's all right. Just have a quick look, see if there's any sort of messages for me. Odie, I don't know if you're still there, mate. Jason, thank you. Thank you very much. That's great. That's good. Lovely. So, I think this one is in part inspired by the tale of Odin speaking to the dead witch who gave him the prophecy of the Ragnarok. Perhaps it is, but perhaps it's informed by that a little bit. I don't know if it is specifically about Odin. But it certainly involves execution by hanging, and is called Witness to a Witch. I have met a hanging woman on the road at day's end, broad from her shoulders, heavy in thigh. Though she dripped from her feet, I passed underneath her, shuddered through my spine when she called me to look up. Though her face was hid in moon shadow, my eyes opened to receive her, saw the face hanging, and her eyes still as poles. Still the rope that held her breathing was not strong enough to gag her. Words fell like blood passing through my veins. Undeniable, she told me. Rest upon the rope. The drop is ever present. We are coming into sky. Reach your hand up and touch me. Fingers straight. I am still bloody, still pissy, still ready to revolve around. Only dead to those too shallow, to those still upon the ground. All my breath given up, but this I swallowed down, and I give it to you now, gorged into your throat. Her hands around my head, tongue opening my mouth, and her breast has passed within me. I have fallen in my gut. I have passed a moon in terror. I have woken still alive. I have met a woman's sister, helped her loose the rope, retrieve the corpse, and lay it into earth. Witness to a witch. So just these three now. Short ones too. And the three of them do talk a little bit of the need to let go of things and to see what remains. Tired but two. Float this like silk on the air, like a laugh of the thunder, a smile on grief. Float it as long as it lasts. It'll settle. My feeling will subside. See it floating still. Your breath, your smile, your laughter. The Vanir are a tribe of gods in Norse mythology. We have the Aesir and we have the Vanir. Not much is said about them, much is known about them. Often in English they're called the Wains. There's a sense in which they are bound to the cycles of nature, they are bound to a cycle of being. Such cyclicness, such being in touch with cycles is something often ascribed to women. Truly. But it also applies to men. And so in this I speak to Freya, the lady of the Vanir, about her brother Frey. I told him I was finished, because he is your brother, and he's seen you molting feathers. I told him I could not go on, and I have seen him dropping antlers in the field, cupped in the hands of the moon. I told him, so tired of the man walk, crowned with all the centuries of command. Your brother blew breath across my lips. He had strong arms across my back. He said, "Drop away then, drop away." Which leaves just this, the last. thank you for watching and sticking with me and staying here to the end-ish. I've been reading poems like this in this way every other day since January, and also sporadically last year through these lockdowns, and I'll read some more day after tomorrow. The video for this will be on the timeline once we've finished, and if you want to watch anything back, and I'll post a set list to that in the comments, and also a link to the ones that I've done previously, should you want to listen to any more. So my guest has been Jennifer A. McGowan with Paper for Feet. This is the last. I've called it Thunder God because although Thuna or Thor is very close to me and I know something of his character, I think there's something of that thunder god that goes across cultures. Both terrifying but warming and caring too. So this is called Thunder God. Even when I cannot hear thunder, my love for him remains. Quiet cat purr across the sky. Deep-minded he, knows the thoughtless world, doesn't need the words. Roll of chipper blood through merry veins. Gentle assertiveness, like hand on a brow, comfort. Strength does not need show itself, it shows itself in ease, as something all possess. As thunder says, yes. Sometimes shouts, yes, for joy.